Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing fantastic out there. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great. Appreciate you guys stopping by, and want to get into a little trade fodder that's out there. There was an article today on ESPN from Brian Windhorst and Tim Bontemps that discussed the Milwaukee Bucks potentially being open for business. The Bucks have definitely been one of the disappointments. You think Miami's had a rough season. They're right there with anybody as far as conundrums. Obviously, Philadelphia has been going through that as well. Their bigger issue is they don't know, when Joel Embiid's come back. If he does come back, is he going to be as effective? So I guess you could probably say they're the only one that takes the cake from them right now as far as disappointments. They did get their second win yesterday, although against a bad Utah Jazz team this season. But there was an article that stemmed from them that basically was discussing the Bucks not really being open for business, but that they are apparently perusing around for some potential trades, that they are going to try and make a move. This was the report. Windhorst said the speculation is true. The Bucks are indeed starting to canvass the league for a trade, league executives told ESPN. But no, not that trade. The concept of two-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo reaching the trade market is ripe for rumors and trade machine computations, but it is not a reality as of now for Antetokounmpo and the Bucks. Sources said the teams have let it be known in recent months they will make teams have let the Bucks know that in recent months that they will make an offer for the Greek Freak if the day ever comes. But those are incoming calls, not outgoing, and it's likely to remain that way. So, part one, Giannis not really on the block. I have a hard time believing that he's going to at any point, even if the Bucks. First of all, I can't imagine them staying this bad. But even if they go through some Heat-like struggles this year and they just never really get it in gear. I just have a hard time believing somebody of his stature gets traded midseason. I guess you could point to Durant as the most recent option. The thing with that, though, is you knew at the start of the season that Kevin Durant was unhappy. Now, look, Giannis hasn't exactly thrown cold water on the idea of playing his entire career in Milwaukee. In fact, I think he's very much opened the door that he doesn't plan on spending his entire career in Milwaukee. And we know that there's been, some reports, rumors, fodder out there that the Heat would be one of those teams. I heard this, get mentioned a little bit too. Again, I don't think this trade happens to Miami with Bam being involved because of the agent connection. With them both having the same agent, knowing how much Bam means to Miami, where that's at, I have a hard time believing his agent would allow for a Giannis Bam Adebayo swap. I feel like this is, if Giannis comes here, if that is going to happen, which it is, look, that's a pretty crazy pipe dream to think about right now. Not impossible, but the one thing I do really believe is I don't think this happens with Jimmy Butler on the team. If by some reason they do want to trade Bam and it is a Jimmy and Giannis tandem, that would surprise me. That, especially with Jimmy not really locked in after this year and also just knowing Jimmy's age. I just think it, and Giannis isn't young. He's kind of like right in that early, in the middle of that prime. So I don't know. I have a hard time believing that the Giannis thing is going to be a thing. Now, this is what they're actually calling about. The article says Milwaukee is making trade calls looking for some help for Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard as Chris Middleton's absence from the ankle surgeries are still going on. The Bucks are going to have a tough time finding anything substantial because Milwaukee is in the second apron of the luxury tax. It is prohibited from aggregating salaries to make deals and from taking back more money than it sends out. quote, a second apron coming is the second apron coming is now really hamstringing them. They're doing their due diligence, but of course they know it. So that's the other thing that's a tough part of this is the whole this is the whole idea of them being able to make a deal for Giannis and get them a lot of help is because of where they're at salary wise. So on the one hand, doesn't really seem like there's a lot of solutions there, but on the other hand, doesn't seem like they're ready to have the itchy trigger finger on the Damian Lillard thing. Because really, while I'm doing this video, you're like, why are you doing all Bucks news, Tobin? Okay, well, one, just I know people were, wanted my thoughts on the Giannis thing, and I don't think anything's really changed. However, would Damian Lillard be moved in the middle of this year? That is going to be an interesting thing because if things don't go great, when comes the time when his agent wants to make a stink? Because he's done it before. He really, this is kind of similar to the Jimmy Butler situation in that, remember the Heat initially were in trade talks for Jimmy Butler with the Timberwolves, where Jimmy had the whole famous Rachel Nichols thing, and negotiations got really tense. He ended up going spending the year in Philadelphia, and then eventually comes to the Miami Heat in a sign trade, and basically the Heat give up Jay Rich. This is a situation where I do think if the Miami Heat get into negotiations with the Damian Lillard thing, forget about they always mock the Dame package, the Tyler Hero, the Jaime Jaquez, Nikola Jovic situation. I don't think the Heat are going to go down that direction. One, the Damian Lillard has not really been a needle mover for the Milwaukee Bucks. He's still killing it statistically. I mean, he's averaging 28 points. He's efficient, but he is older, and he's got a lot of dough on that contract. And I got a hard time believing Riley is not going to be looking for back taxes on pain and suffering. And that is basically, you guys stuck your beak in our business. And I don't imagine Pat Riley is going to do that with any of the Heat's young talent. Maybe. It was kind of like perusing on the trade machine. And salary-wise, because it's so tight, it worked with, and I was just doing ESPN trade machine, so don't kill me, but I just threw together, salary-wise, what worked was Rozier, Duncan, and Jovic, which I'm not even big on because I don't want to trade Nikola Jovic. But it does have to be asked, with his age, he is going to be, I think, extension eligible after this season. And it feels like just in the early goings of the year, it feels like his role is going to shrink, not grow. And so with the Heat being a little up against it with pick assets and Milwaukee being in the run of like, hey, if we have to go post Giannis, what are we going to have for it? I guess the Heat fan has to wonder, I don't think Tyler's going to be in that trade. If Tyler's going to be traded for a Milwaukee Bucks star, I think it's going to be Greek Freak. It's not going to be Damian Lillard. And I do think people are looking at the Rozier thing and they're wondering, is that really good enough? And I think Terry's just going through one of his cold slumps right now. So he certainly can be, we've seen what a nuclear Terry Rozier looks like, but he's not Damian Lillard. And I said this in the offseason with him. As much as I like Terry as a player, he is not a star. He's never been an all-star. He's been a very nice complimentary piece. He's had some really big playoff moments as Scary Terry. But, there's even people who are like, should we even have him in the starting lineup right now? With Damian Lillard, I don't think you have those questions. So, salary-wise, if you were to do it, it would look something like Terry Rozier, Duncan Robinson, and Nico. And would Heat fans be into that? I'm a little hesitant to even give up Jovic for it just because I think the Heat really want to feel like they're going to fleece the Bucks for Damian Lillard. So that's going to be an interesting thing. But am I is the team going to be totally against that? That would be an interesting question, because Spo would probably look at it and be like, I got Damian Lillard as my starting point guard now, and Haywood Highsmith's going to be my starting power forward anyway, and we have Alec Burks to do Duncan-like things. Pelle Larsson would want to play more. But I'm not giving up Jaime. I'm not giving up Pelle. I'm not giving up Kalel. Nico's just the interesting one, because I just don't know where the fit is right now. If they even do throw in a young guy. Because they're really, really close with Duncan and Terry if that happens. But it's going to be an interesting thing. And then you got to think about the Jimmy Butler piece of this, too, because the Heat are going on this big road trip. I don't know if you guys see the games, the weather right now. It's a snowstorm in Denver. The Heat have lost. They gave Anthony Chang tweeted out 7 of their last 8 regular season matchups against the Denver Nuggets. So, that's not great. That's not a great record. They have typically had the Heat's number. And then I guess if you throw in the 5 games they've lost, what is that, 11 out of 13? So it's it's one of those things where Miami, I said this going into this trip, like there's going to be, this is a good measuring stick for them. And mind you, they've had these have been really 2 close games. They have a big time Achilles heel they have to figure out, but it doesn't feel like a team that's outgunned. And they have not had Jaime these last couple of games, for whatever that's worth, who essentially was supposed to be your 6th man and give you some relief and keep some of maybe those dry spells from going, but they haven't had Jaime. We'll see if they get Kevin Love back. I saw that he was in the pictures with the team, but I don't know where he's at with that reconditioning thing. But either way, let's just say the Heat are in a spot where they don't know if they're going to compete, right? There's a lot of Warriors rumblings out there that they're trying to make a star move, and we know that they've already been interested in Jimmy Butler. And you have to wonder, with that, going back to the Giannis thing, do the Heat get into a position where if they feel like this isn't going anywhere, do they go and make a move with the Golden State Warriors? They circle back on the Warriors thing. And I think the thing that he would really want are picks, especially knowing that the Bucks don't have a lot of picks. That's really what I think Milwaukee's going to look to refurbish, because they wrote in this article, Bucks don't control their next 6 first-round picks. They've traded 3 firsts. They've made 3 swaps. This effectively blunts the concept of a short-term rebuild through the draft in Milwaukee over the next 3 drafts. The Pelicans have control of the Bucks' first-round pick if it ends up in the top 4. If 2025 is the pick from 5 to 30, it goes to the Brooklyn Nets. The Pelicans also have an unprotected 2026 swap and Milwaukee's unprotected 2027 first-rounder, though that pick could go to Atlanta if it lands outside the top 4. So you have to think that if Giannis does end up being on the block and he really want to get in the game for him, they have to up their war chest of picks. They have to. That's going to be critical. We've seen with all these things, like the thing that GM really wants, they want the nice player, but when you're losing a generation guy like this, like they want to know, hey, look at all these picks we got, to really appease their fan base. And this is why I don't think a Jimmy Giannis tandem is going to work, because I just don't see one middle of the year trade for Giannis. Just seems very, very unlikely. The Jimmy thing's a little different. It's kind of similar to the KD thing, where it's like we kind of know there's maybe something there where both parties are looking for the future. I will just say, though, picks, Kuminga, whatever you're going to get for him, the Warriors look damn good. Damn good. And I've said this before. There's not many franchises in the NBA I'm jealous of, okay? I hate the Celtics guts. I hate the Knicks. I obviously hate that the Celtics won the championship last year, but I've been supremely jealous of the Warriors, okay? They've done right by Steph Curry. They were able to get Steph Curry another championship post Kevin Durant. he got to kind of ride off into the sunset like that. The Heat, since they lost LeBron, they have been close, but they've never been able to get that final chip. Not that final chip, but they haven't been able to get that elusive post Big Three chip. Whereas like the Warriors did, and they kind of got to say, see, we're not all just Kevin Durant. And Steph Curry obviously won Finals MVP that year, and they did have to move off of Klay Thompson. They did not do the whole honeymoon thing, which was a painful thing that they did. They've obviously been through a lot of drama too, and they've been through more stinkers than the Heat have because of some Steph injuries, which has allowed them to kind of rebuild on some stuff, even though they kind of botched their pick. But, man, I don't know if I can stomach Jimmy Butler going to an actual title contender, Like that to me, if I see Jimmy Butler hoist the Larry O'Brien trophy with another team, that's going to really hurt, man. That's going to sting. And if there's one team I would be worried about him going to, and I'd be like, oh, that makes sense, and it feels like it's going to work, and it feels like it's going to put him over the top. Yeah, Jimmy Butler on the Golden State Warriors is that. And if I'm the Miami Heat and I know that, I better be getting a haul for Jimmy. And I don't know that they will, because people know his contract situation. It's just a matter of, we know the Golden State Warriors are a little desperate. They've been trying to snoop around every big trade that there is to make. So all this being connected is interesting, because if the Heat really are going to go make a LeBron-like swing at Giannis being disgruntled, they're going to need more ammunition to throw in a trade that they don't really have. They could get it through a Jimmy Butler trade, but then you also have this Damian Lillard thing that could potentially be a circle back for Miami, and then you essentially could take it with two last cracks at it with Jimmy, and see if that and especially the way Tyler's playing, you almost like soup up the Terry Rozier spot. If that's possible, and the Bucks keep struggling, then you can give Jimmy one last crack at this thing, or maybe two last cracks if this can go into next year. It's just a matter of, would you part with a young piece for it? And would the Bucks, like, when do the Bucks say uncle? Like, when do the Bucks get to a point where they are like, all right, we'll make that deal? And do the Heat really think they're contenders? That's why I think this trip is so interesting. So just some fodder that's out there. Also, Philly Cheese says that some teams could use him. I don't think the Heat are going to go back to that well, but he's out there too. So Philly Cheese.